What's your favorite scary movie?
Hello and welcome to
What's your favorite scary movie?
on
105 FM.
That's it. We are What's Your Favourite Scary Movie on Callum 105 FM with Jamie Davies and Andrew Pollard.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm in the post-Halloween spirit, but the pre-Halloween spirit, because actual Halloween isn't here yet, but the movie is. And
I know there's two Halloweens this month. What's going on?
That's cool with me. I'm all right with that. Yeah, I'm all right. And obviously, we will discuss the movie at some point, probably very soon, in which I think we may have different opinions, possibly.
Yes, of course. If you're wondering what your favourite scary movie is all
Yes.
about, it's about two horror nerds of Jamie Davis and Andrew Pollard. You don't mind me calling you a nerd, do you?
No.
That's
Feel
all right.
free.
That's
Feel
all right.
free.
That's all right. Because some people I know would hate that.
I've been called a lot worse. Normally by you.
Words we cannot say
Yes.
on radio. So obviously, basically, me and Andrew are hoping to talk about as many horror films as we can over the next few weeks or months on Callan
Years,
FM.
decades.
Decades, yes, decades. Whatever we have left on this planet we call Earth. But anyway, of course, our very first film, well, we've got to start it off with John Carpenter. Well, I say John Carpenter's Halloween because I sound like I'm from 1978.
Yep.
But actually, the new Halloween film, which was, of course, released last on Friday, which was the 19th of October. So before we go into that, we'll introduce ourselves, shall we? So I'm Jamie Davis. So we're going to talk about what we do when we're not terrifying ourselves and other things like that. So I like to say I'm in between jobs at the moment.
You have like a million jobs. That's why you're in between them.
That's why I'm in between.
Yeah.
You know, I can't seem to pick one.
Yeah.
So I do, as you can tell, you've probably heard my voice on the Let's Talk Sports show that we've done for a number of years here. Andrew Pollard is one of our guests on the show as well, which you can listen to every Monday from 8 till 9. I nearly forgot the time slot.
Nice plug. Nice plug.
Yep. And so, I like to do a lot of sport and certainly enjoy watching horror films in my spare time. And actually, my first horror / scary film was actually Scream, the 1996 film. And I remember actually it being a Sunday night, 9 p.m., Channel 4. I didn't know it was coming on. It was just, you know, when you leave the TV on and your parents are in the kitchen or whatever, I thought, I'll just stick with this film. I didn't know it was a horror. And I was at primary school, so I could have been scarred for life watching this. And I just remember watching the introduction, and I was so scared of when, what was her name?
Drew Barrymore.
That was it, Drew Barrymore. And I didn't know who she was at the time. My knowledge of actors and actresses was not very good. And I just remember her getting thrown out the window or whatever, getting stabbed to her heart. And yeah, it was pretty gruesome.
See, on the flip side of that, because I knew who she was, I was equally as shocked because she was the main draw of it. She was the name. She was the front of all the posters. She was the biggest name attached to it because, there's Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, who were just kind of growing in their careers. Courtney Cox was a big deal because of Friends, but the big name attached to it was Drew Barrymore. So then to see her killed off in the first 10 minutes, it was like, that was a huge shock to me because I knew who she was. And it kind of sets a tone as like anything can happen in this film and its subsequent sequels, I guess.
And it was a great intro to the franchise as well, if people like to call it franchise. But yeah, that was my first ever horror film. Do you remember your very first horror / scary film?
I talked about Halloween, the original 1978 movie. Now, I am old, but I wasn't old enough to be around in 1978, just about. But I remember seeing that one night when I'd be about 11 or 12. I remember the first time I saw that movie, just because of the scenes where Michael's behind the bed sheets in the backyard, and the scenes where he's kind of hiding behind the bushes almost in the street. So I remember my first time of seeing Halloween, but I think my first horror movie I remember would be one that has properly scarred me for life, Jaws. Watching that when I would be maybe 5 or 6, My cousins were looking after me. My auntie and my mum had gone out shopping somewhere for the afternoon. My cousins, who were a bit older than me, they really enjoyed Jaws and put it on to watch with little tiny me, who then became one of that generation who were terrified of the water, regardless of. I won't go in the sea to this very day. I won't go in swimming pools. I do not go in water, and it's all because of Jaws.
You never know what's under the sea.
It is. It's totally. It's that. And I like to think of myself as a relatively rational kind of person, and I know it's a totally irrational fear. Like, even I don't like, this sounds bizarre, but I don't like to go to fly anywhere, because in my head I think that the plane will crash. I'll survive the impact and all that, obviously, of course, and we'll land.
Lost.
Yeah, pretty much. But we'll land in the sea, and then I'll be eaten by a shark. It's totally irrational. So yeah,
Okay, have you predicted your future?
I hope
the
not.
final destination.
I really hope not. I really hope my final destination is not somewhere in the murky waters of the ocean with a couple of great whites around me. It's totally irrational fear. I got to a stage where I couldn't even. My friends in uni used to take the mick at me for this and exploit this fear, where I couldn't even touch a picture of a shark. It freaked me out. But I'm really fascinated by them. So I do have loads of shark books. I watch all the documentaries, watch any and all shark movies.
You're a Sharknado fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Meg?
I really like the Meg. I really like the Meg. For what it was a big action movie, summer blockbuster that didn't take itself too seriously. Yeah, so I've got a slew of horrendous movies at home, like Sand Sharks, which is sharks in the sand. There's Snow Sharks, which is sharks in the snow. There's Two-Headed Shark Attack with Hulk Hogan's daughter and Carmen Electra, which is awful. There's Super Shark, which is a giant shark that can come on land. There's Ghost Shark, which is a shark that gets killed out in the ocean, floats to this magical cave, and then comes back to haunt people through any water, so like water coolers, toilets. So yeah, I've watched lots of really bad shark films, but back to the point, because I've gone way off it. First horror film I remember is Jaws.
And feel free to introduce yourself.
Oh,
Andrew,
yeah.
Because I just thought I'd mention, you've met some of these famous names from classic horror films.
Yeah, my day job, as it were, is writing for a magazine and looking after their website, Starburst Magazine, as you have written for that publication yourself at times.
It's a great magazine.
Yeah. And I've been doing that for probably about 4 years, and some of what I do is interviewing people in the horror genre. So yeah, there's... Just recently, last week, was Adrienne Barbeau, who John Carpenter's ex-wife, who's in Escape from New York, The Fog, Swamp Thing, Creepshow, things like that. Robert Englund's one. I've had Freddy Krueger, who I talked to 3 times. Kane Hodder, who played Jason. Yeah, it's really interesting, especially just as a massive fan of all that stuff. It's enjoyable, should we say? There's worse jobs I could be doing than just speaking to people that I've watched on TV and films for years. Yeah,
it's funny. I mean, we could talk about these people all day, especially Freddy Krueger. I mean, I love the character. It's a great character. And Robert Englund himself, he's a fantastic actor, and he's probably terrifying himself. He's probably scared when he looks in the mirror and thinks, "Oh, I'm Freddy Krueger."
Yeah, well, it was kind of cool. I had I think it was the first time I spoke to him, I had a proper geek out moment, because halfway through the interview, while he was talking about something, about the makeup process actually of getting prepared as Freddy.
Imagine how long that takes.
Yeah, but he then dropped in the Freddy voice and just stopped, and it was like, this is cool. Talking to Robert Englund, and he now sounds like Freddy properly.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible. And we'll talk more about this over the next few weeks of the show.
Yes, indeed.
Definitely get some insights from our good friend, Andrew Pollard. So obviously, as I mentioned, we're going to review a film each time we're on.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, we are going to talk about this year's Halloween film. The new Halloween is out. It was one of those which I was really excited for. The trailer looked great. My only thing I hate about trailers is that it can reveal so much before you go.
Yeah.
And like, for example, the scene where Mike Myers is in the kid's cupboard and the babysitter's trying to shut the door, and then he comes out with a knife, and little things like that annoyed me in the trailer. I can understand why it was in there, but then it's like, when you go and see the film, you know what's going to happen. It's just like, not getting...
it's like a big bugbear of mine. I try, for the most part, with the job I do, it's like I kind of have to see the trailers, but I try for the most part to avoid as many trailers as I can, because it's just the modern trend these days where they show so much. I remember the worst culprit to me was Terminator Genesis, where I say spoilers, but it's a film that's like 2 years old now. So if you were going to see it, you've probably seen it by now. But in the trailer, there's this big moment where it's revealed that John Connor all along as being a Terminator himself. And it's like, oh wow, that's huge. That's in the trailer. What's going to be the extra bit on that in the film? And it's like when you watch the movie, it's like, no, that was the big twist. It's like, oh, thanks for spoiling that for everybody. It's just I think trailers these days. I get that. Obviously, the whole point of a trailer is to show snippets in the movie to entice people to go and see that film. But you can be very careful, and I think sometimes it's a bit slack these days.
And going into the film, this is 40 years after the original. So for any of you who have seen all those Halloween films in preparation for this new one, you've wasted your time because technically the first Halloween film from 1978, it's the follow-up to that. So the H20, Resurrection, Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh my God, there's so many. This is the 11th film of the franchise, but the story is only from the first one to this new film, which is, I guess, is okay. You know, I can understand that. Of course, we all remember from the, spoiler alerts, 1978 film, where, of course, Mike Myers we all thought he was dead in the back garden when he fell off the balcony. And, 40 years later, he is, of course, in an asylum. That's where we first find him, and his mask is off. Yep. Yeah. The mask is off, and played by Nick Castle, who played him for the most part in that very first Halloween movie. And he's 71, 73 or something like that now. But, I mean, I didn't know he was that old, but, I thought he did great as the role as always. Yeah, and he, to be fair, he after that, because he was a friend of John Carpenter's, so he just was, by happenstance, he played Michael Myers in that first Halloween movie because it was a small budget where there was just John Carpenter and his friends making the movie. People like Tommy Lee Wallace involved as well, Deborah Hill, who was the writer and producer. And so it was, Nick Castle would go on basically to make a career for himself as a director. So he's not even really, I mean, he acts now and again, but he's not really considered an actor. He is so the Shape. Yeah, so that's it. He came back to play the Shape for the unmasked scenes anyway. And then there's a stunt chap whose name I totally can't remember who did Michael in the more physical scenes. But yeah, it was. It surprised me a little bit seeing him without the mask. Not so much seeing him without the mask, but how much we saw. We didn't ever get to see the full face, but you saw enough. Yeah. Which took me back a little bit. It did leave me with an imagination thinking, because he didn't really have any hair. No. He had like an overgrown kind of beard going on, like grey. Obviously, he's quite old now, let's be honest. And you saw like a bit of his eyes now and again. And you didn't see the full face. But I thought, at first, I really want to know what he looks like, even though I know who the actor looks like, but just for the film sake. But see, I had the fear that they were going to show. I didn't want to see too much. I was the other way, where I was hoping that they weren't going to show his full face, and they don't. And we're used to Jason Voorhees. Every film, his mask just come off, and he got worse and worse and worse. He could have made the calendar of scary faces straight away just from that. But luckily, they didn't do that, unless they ever needed to make some money marketing wise. But yes, we started off with the film with two podcasters. The names of Aaron and Dana. Funny enough, I think one of them were in Game of Thrones in the early seasons. I don't know. I've never watched Game of Thrones. So. I have, and I don't recognize them at all. But it's like those early seasons are kind of like 5, 6, 7 years ago now. So, and I could barely remember what I did yesterday. So yeah. I'll take your word on that one. I mean, they were actors. That's one thing we can confirm. But we should probably drop in now as well that this might get a little bit spoilery. Oh yeah, sorry, I nearly forgot. Spoiler alert: if you haven't seen the film yet, go and see it first before you listen to this podcast. Or skip forward maybe 10 minutes. Skip forward, something like that for our rating at the end of it all. But as I mentioned, the two podcasters they try and get a word with Mike Myers. As always, he can't speak. Well, he can speak, but he doesn't want to. Yeah, hasn't spoken a word in 40 years. Yeah, crazy. And I mean, I can chat for England sometimes. How does he cope? I can chat for Wales. Yeah, you can chat for Wales. If there's ever a home nations match, it'll be us two against each other. Yeah. So, I'll be getting my tactics. I think you probably would just about win that one, I reckon. You're too kind, Andrew. I think this is mind games here. There's mind games going on here on What's Your Favourite Scary Movie. But as I mentioned... we know where he is, and then obviously they can't get a word out of him. They go and see Laurie, who of course is Jamie Lee Curtis's character. She wants the $3,000 to do an interview. Yeah, they don't get much for $3,000. I thought. She's basically at this point when we pick up with Laurie Strode, she's essentially a recluse living in the middle of the woods in a very highly secured property. And isn't very keen to speak to somebody. But when these podcasters turn up to try and interview her,
when they make the offer of $3,000, then she's a bit more receptive, and yeah, but then they prod her on questions clearly that she doesn't want to answer or doesn't want to acknowledge. Because as well as being a recluse, she's very distant from her daughter at the time, and in turn her granddaughter. But the relationship with the granddaughter is quite strong, and the granddaughter wants crazy old grandmother Laurie to. I didn't. What a very minor bugbear, but I didn't like the fact they kept calling her grandmother. It's like grandma, nan, nan. I don't know anybody that everybody calls their grandparents different names, but I don't really know anybody that calls them grandmother or grandfather. It's like, oh, hey, grandmother, which is exactly what they do in the film. Anyway, the daughter wants to reconnect the mum and the grandmother, Laurie Strode, and Laurie, by all accounts, has not been the greatest of parent because her daughter was taken off her at 12 years of age because she spent her years in the post-Michael Myers years essentially training her daughter, preparing her daughter for if the shape would come back. And that was very intense training. It kind of goes a little bit Sarah Connor in Terminator 2 because Laurie's a badass with lots of guns. And so these podcasters, when they arrive, they ask her about the broken relationship with her daughter, and that kind of causes her to politely ask them to leave, but give her the $3,000.
And they didn't get what they were after. Really.
No, well, they got something, but probably not what they asked for later on.
I loved as well what they said. Journalists don't pay people for interviews. I'm sure there's been a few out there that have sold themselves for some few $100,000 maybe. Not going to say any names, but I'm thinking
Kim Kardashian. I'm just throwing that out there.
You completely agree. Yes. Completely agree.
Or you just make a video of yourself doing certain things, and that gets you famous.
It's
but
true.
We'll move on from that.
We'll move on from that. We'll do a special show for that one day, maybe.
Late night.
Yeah, Trend Live on Canon FM. But obviously, then what I noticed though, with actually before we move on, I love it how Jamie Lee Curtis's character actually had a family after the Michael Myers attack.
Yeah, two failed marriages as well. That they talk about how she's had two husbands who both divorced her.
But I can't believe she would let that go so far. When I'm surprised, like the husbands would want to stay with her with the fact that she's always going to be paranoid that he might come back.
Yeah,
I don't know. I find that I thought that wasn't very realistic. But
I don't know. Some people that might be. It might get to the point like it does with the daughter. It got to the point with the daughter where she doesn't want to know, or her mother at this point doesn't want to know Laurie Strode because it went so far. So maybe some of the husbands, they just got to their breaking point, really. They could only take so much of this. She's clearly obsessed with this notion that Michael Myers is going to return. And that would have gone on for 40 years. That's first and foremost in her brain for every situation is, where's Michael? When's he going to appear? I suppose if you're living with that on a day-to-day basis as a husband, as a daughter, then eventually maybe you just get to enough's enough, which is what happens with the daughter, and I suppose it's probably what happened with the two husbands. And
then the shape returned because a bus that was supposed to transfer them to another prison or something like that.
A worse, because I think it's Smith's Grove. I think they use as the first place he's locked up, which is the asylum that's been used throughout the Halloween franchise, and then they're going to move him to a place it's even worse because they can't get him to speak. He doesn't do anything. So they give it a name, but it's described as like a hellhole. And in the transportation process, of course, the bus goes AWOL, which we don't actually see on camera. We just see the aftermath where we pick up where the bus is off the road, and some passers-by come along, find some of these the patients just wandering the streets, and then they get killed by Michael Myers.
Michael Myers, yeah, and it was when the kid and his father were out. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you'd think they'd learn from horror films not to go out of the car when you're with psychos around you, but you know, it was like a zombie scene, wasn't it? Zombies,
but clearly highly medicated or just suffering with illness, really. So yeah, it reminded me very much of a George Romero movie where it was just you had these lifeless bodies just floating around like zombies, essentially outside on the road, not looking to do any harm to anybody, just there. And obviously Michael's looking to do a bit of harm though.
And obviously we get the first kill in front of us, and then that's where the massacre begins. The shape has returned for good. And he's probably missed it for those last 40 years. So he's probably trained himself up to get ready for the next kill. And he knows he has an audience to keep entertained.
I guess one thing we didn't mention, really, we skipped over, is the fact that when the podcasters first approach Michael and try and get him to talk, what triggers him is the mask. Bringing the mask back. They have with them in their possession the original mask, which is a Captain Kirk mask.
Yes,
which cost $1.78. Tommy Lee Wallace bought it in 1977, and so we were filming the original movie, and made the eye holes bigger, painted it white, and changed the hair, and that Captain Kirk mask became the iconic Michael Myers mask. So these podcasters turn up with the mask, and it's only then that they start, not a reaction necessarily on Michael, but everybody around him. Dogs start howling, the other inmates start howling as well, essentially. And it's all about the mask is kind of the trigger point, and we see him after he gets out of the bus side massacre, the roadside massacre. He then starts to make his way back to Haddonfield, and along the way he collects what become the essential Michael Myers kind of cosplay outfit. It's he ends up getting the overalls, then he makes his way to get the mask, which he ultimately does, and it costs the two podcasters their lives in the process.
Well, you say, I mean,
you've got a theory.
I have a theory that the male chap of the podcast, because it's a man and a girl, I honestly think he didn't die, because we see a scene where she's just been strangled to death in the toilet after teeth goes thrown everywhere, which I thought was great. That was great. But it was just the fact that she's dead, and then he's just there, sitting there with blood all over, and he's still breathing, and I'm thinking, maybe Mike Myers wants to keep you alive for something. I don't know what for.
Possibly. I don't know. But
I can't see that happening. But
that scene itself was a nice callback to Halloween 4. Which,
it was,
Which there's a famous scene in that where Michael's again making his way back to Haddonfield. That is Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers, because Halloween 3 didn't feature Michael Myers. That was Season of the Witch. So it's Michael's big return, and as he's making his way to Haddonfield, he stops at a gas station. He gets the overalls, which is exactly what happens here, and then he goes into the ladies' toilets and stalks some poor girl in there, stall by stall, looking to see who's in there, and they mirror that. That was a nice callback. Or some might say it's just a retread. I don't know. It depends where you stand on that, I guess. Because in this movie, there are lots of callbacks to the franchise, to pretty much to every single movie that's been in the franchise. And so some might say that's really nice and poignant, and is almost just paying homage respectfully. Others might say, oh, yeah, but you're just using bits of other films.
Yeah.
Me personally, as a massive fan of the franchise, I like it, but I know some people that really didn't like that at all and just thought it was lazy.
I know what you mean. I felt like that. But there's been loads, like, for example, I know it's going off topic, but like Trainspotting 2, you'd have moments where they'd look back at a certain, like, the worst toilet in Scotland. You'd have things like that, and they'd bring it back. And it amused me. You know, it makes you laugh thinking, oh, yeah, I remember that. It is like a nostalgia moment. You know, because that film was 20 years after the first one. Obviously, with this, it's 40 years. So I enjoyed some of it, but there was times where it's like, I don't know. I like to see a challenge. I don't know what I'm trying to say with that.
Yeah.
But
well, there's other moments like they poke fun at the fact that, because in Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, it was revealed that Michael Myers and Laurie Strode are brother and sister, and they poke fun at that in this, where it's when the teenagers of today are talking about this kind of mythical boogeyman of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Somebody says like, "Oh, I heard that Laurie Strode's his sister," and it's like, no, that's just speculation. That's just what someone made up. So they poke fun at that. So that's a nice callback. Then there's later on we get the scene where, because at the end of Halloween you talked about it, at the end of the very first movie, you see Michael lying on the grass if he's fallen from the window. And then when you look back, he's gone, and it's just empty space. And there's a scene with that with Laurie Strode where they do that. Where,
I love that. That was good.
Later on, she goes through the window, and you know what's coming. You know that they're going to vice versa, spin it around. So little things like that are nice. They drop a Mr. Sandman at times. They reference Dr. Loomis. I didn't like the voice they used for Dr. Loomis, because, I mean, obviously Donald Pleasance, who played Sam Loomis, in the first, up to Halloween.
He's up to 5, or I can't remember.
6.
6. Sorry,
yeah. He passed away during the shoot of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, in 1996, because they filmed all his parts and then they went back to do some reshoots, but he passed away before then, so they couldn't do any reshoots with him. Then he's referenced in picture form in Halloween H20 at the beginning, when there's the nurse whose house gets ransacked at the beginning. Poor Joseph Gordon-Levitt ends up with an ice hockey skate in his face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you find out that Loomis that's basically his retirement home. And you see a picture of him. But yeah, his last movie he was properly involved in was Halloween 6. But So obviously they can't get Donald Pleasance to record any more lines because he's sadly no longer with us. And so they get an impersonator in to do. There's a little bit of dialogue from Dr. Loomis, which is supposedly back from when he was originally looking at the Michael case. And while I think to American audiences it'll sound very much like Donald Pleasance playing Dr. Sam Loomis because the generalization you get with a British accent, but I don't know, I just thought it sounded a little bit off. But it's only a small moment in the film and it's only a small gripe, and I totally lost where we were going then.
I was going to say I forgot as well, but no, I know what you mean. It's only a little. I didn't really sense much of it. I actually thought originally it was his original voice from like old tapes that they might have done when they made the first one just for material for future stuff. But I was. It was good. That was the one thing I was good about not having Loomis in it because obviously, as you mentioned, the actor has passed away sadly back in the 90s, and obviously they can't really reprise that well. But we had another one who was his
Protege,
apprentice. I didn't like him.
No, well that's it. You have basically
the way I just jump in.
Yeah, you have the Loomis figure who wants to stay with Michael. He's involved with Michael when they transport him from Smith's Grove, and then he. I suppose we are going into spoiler territory, aren't we? We are doing spoilers on this, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's a big reveal that comes out later in the film when the backing hand is revealed. Michael has killed a few people, and he's on his way. Well, they're all on the way to Laurie Strode's safe house. All the family.
Girl.
Yeah, that's it. And this new doctor, he takes Andy Maslak's character, the granddaughter, takes her and a policeman, and they find Michael, the cop, who turns out that the policeman. I really like that how they handled that. It was a policeman who was there originally in 1978 that they referenced that. So he knows Laurie Strode, he knows all about Michael Myers, and he apparently had the chance to kill him back then, and he didn't, and so that plays on his mind a bit. And now he wants to put the shakedown for good. So they run over him. And when the cop goes out to see to Michael, the doctor comes out and kills the cop. And then he takes Michael's mask. And it's... I just... That was... It just seemed like they threw in a twist for the shape of... No pun intended. For the shape of just throwing in a twist. It was just the case of... It
didn't make sense.
No, I get that what they're going for is that he wanted to feel that feeling of killing somebody, and he puts because he wanted to feel what Michael's felt. He studied Michael for all these years, and he wanted. I think they were trying to get over the fact that he wanted to experience what Michael's experienced in terms of killing somebody, and then he puts a mask on as well, and that just looked ridiculous.
And it was just little things like that where you knew it wasn't really a twist though, because it's you were never Michael Myers.
No,
I didn't get it.
And then he gets killed off by Michael about 5 minutes later.
He gets literally kicked and crushed.
His head squished into the ground like a pumpkin.
And then we have the granddaughter sitting in the back seat with Michael Myers. I mean, that's a nightmare in itself.
Because Michael at this point is after being run over, is unconscious, and the doctor, before he gets killed, puts him in the back of this police car with the poor granddaughter, and it's just like, right, okay, this is cozy. And then they start driving towards Laurie Strode's house. Michael gets out. Michael kills the doctor, and then it's the race is on to get to Laurie first. You've got the granddaughter going one way. You've got Michael going another way. Michael does get there first. Michael then continues to kill people.
Fast guy for a 71-year-old.
He is, yeah. He gets about. And then you just have the big, literally explosive finale, which is... I enjoyed the final part of it. I enjoyed the whole movie, really. I mean, we'll get to ratings in a few minutes, but I thought that the ending was well handled, where Laurie and her daughter, Karen Strode, because Laurie Strode's got this cool little thing in her house where one of the kitchen worktops essentially just underneath is a safe room in the basement. And
which must have been very expensive.
Yes, I thought this. Maybe it's those divorces. She got a nice payoff.
Or just Jamie Lee Curtis came out of nowhere and used her film earnings.
Maybe. But it's essentially an armory down there. It's where she trained Karen when she was younger, which is the training is why she got taken off her. So there's guns everywhere. There's even a Karen Strode personalized gun with a KS on it, her initials. So they get tooled up and wait for Michael, but then obviously the granddaughter arrives as well, and it's a big hullabaloo.
Communications goes out the window.
And you end up with Laurie Strode stalking Michael Myers because Laurie's prepared for this. She's not just a victim. It's the element in the film where they essentially use it as a I guess post-traumatic stress disorder, in a way, is in how Laurie Strode, that's the overarching arc of this film. It's not necessarily, it's a Halloween movie, but it's not necessarily all about Michael Myers. The main narrative is about Laurie Strode and her struggles since Michael, the effect it's had on her, the effect it's followed through onto her family life, and then...
And to this day, even before he came back, it was always her priority.
It was always Michael. And so when he does arrive, she's not the scared little girl. She's not the victim. She is prepared. She's confident. She knows how to take him down. She wants to take him down, and so she goes on the hunt for him.
And I think that's what I liked about that narrative, because it was challenging. Because you normally go and see horror films where there's always, as you say, there's Laurie Strode, Sydney from
Sydney Prescott.
There's always that victim.
Yeah.
But it was that whole thing of I'm ready to take him on, and then even in the trailer, we would see that she would say, she prayed that he would come out and escape, and then obviously he says, "Why do you want to do that?" And it's like, well, I want to kill him.
Yeah,
I just loved that, because I thought, wow, so there's two people who want to kill each other, and
it's a very basic
a Freddy
primal
versus Jason, but Laurie versus
Mike. That's one way to look at it. I think the way they positioned it, it's a very primal, basic human thing that everyone can kind of relate to, in the sense of, if somebody's wronged you, we're all taught to let it go, smile and get on with it. And for the most part, we do. But whenever you get wronged, especially to the extent that Laurie Strode did, you always there's that like, oh, I wish I could get some payback on them with some people. And so it's something that everybody can relate to. That all her friends were massacred by this guy. Her whole life has been ruined by him. Her marriages have failed. Her daughter hates her when we first introduced her anyway. And she's had to go and live like a recluse in the middle of a forest, in the middle of the woods. So she's got all this resentment that you can relate to that. If you're in a situation, you're thinking, I'd like to see him so I can try and get some payback. And so she's not scared, she's ready, and like I said, she ends up stalking him through her house. And we then find out that all the rooms have got safety bars on them, essentially, where she goes into a room. It's all blacked out by this point, of course, because horror movie. She goes into each room, stalks each room for Michael. He's not there, so then she presses the button and it locks the door and rules that one out. And
that would scare me, just hearing that noise.
But there's because in her back garden, in her yard, she's got all these dummies that she uses as target practice. And there's one room where there's lots of dummies, and you're thinking, why would you keep them in your house, really?
I know.
And it's kind of clearly Michael's going to be hiding in there somewhere, and that's where he is. Yeah, it was just, that was a little bit of a head scratcher, but not too bad. And then obviously they have their big fight. Laurie gets kind of done in a bit by the shape, and then it's the daughter's moment to shine, and she plays the victim when Michael starts to come down the stairs at her, and she's all upset and calling for her mother, for Jamie Lee Curtis, for Laurie Strode, and it's all just a ruse. It's an act. She remembers her
training.
The whole point of her being prepared is she is prepared, and she plays on that, and then she just shoots him, and then he ends up in the basement. They set him on fire, lock him in there with these security bars. The end, pretty much.
It pretty much.
Yeah, it was.
And then they get, as always, there's always a vehicle that comes out of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, to pick these people up and take them wherever they are.
Yeah,
and that's what we saw.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, I love the scene when she's behind Michael, and then she goes, "Happy Halloween, Michael," and then does the hit and all that stuff. But is he dead?
No. Because it's already said that Blumhouse, who were producing the Halloween movie most recently out, they've already said that they're already at work on a sequel. So there will be more Michael Myers. I'd imagine potentially as early as next Halloween.
It could be like, Resurrection. We watched the start. I know.
Don't say that word to me. Don't say that word to me. I hate that movie.
The R word.
Halloween Resurrection is one of the worst films I've ever seen.
It's the fact that when you watch the intro of that, they obviously do the scene again at the end of the last one to show what happened.
How he got away, basically.
And Jamie Lee Curtis killed the wrong person.
Yeah, some poor paramedic
with his head chopped off,
yeah,
and he wasn't going to survive that. Maybe, I'm not saying the next Halloween film will be like that, but maybe they'll show how he gets out of this fire.
There's always a way to bring back Michael Myers. At the end of the original Halloween 2, that ends with the hospital on fire, and you got Sam Loomis screaming, and you don't know what's going on there. It's just this ambiguity of the final shot, as Mr. Sandman by the Cordettes plays out, is the shot of Michael Myers on the floor on fire, burning to death. Dr. Sam Loomis screaming, and it's just like it's presumed and implied that both of those are dead. And then fast forward a few years, and you do Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers. And you bring him back. No explanation really. There's no explanation to how he survived the fire. So there's always ways to bring him back. Halloween 4, at the end of that, he gets blown down a mine shaft. He gets shot with guns, obviously, to the point where he falls down this mine shaft. And then it's revealed at Halloween 5 that he was rescued by a nice friendly hermit and looked after for a year. And then he kills the hermit and goes on his killing spree for Halloween 5. There's always a way to bring back the shape.
The shape will never die.
Yeah, but with the Halloween H20 ending you mentioned there, where if you're not familiar with that, the ending of that is Michael basically ends up stuck in a tree. He's helpless, and Jamie Lee Curtis is there, and he's reaching out to her, and she gets the moment of like, well, it's my brother, what do I do? And then she just chops his head off with an axe. And then it's revealed at the beginning of Halloween Resurrection that it was Michael swapped places with the paramedic and put the mask on him. But that was part of Jamie Lee Curtis's deal. That scene, the resurrection scene, was actually filmed the very next day after shooting Wrapped on Halloween H20, because Jamie Lee Curtis, it was her contract. Well, Mustafa Akkad, who was still producing the movies at that point, he had a clause in all the contracts that you could not kill Michael Myers. You could not kill him off. Jamie Lee Curtis didn't want to do any more movies after H20. That was to her. Yeah, that was to her. H20 was the swan song, the final movie, and so she only wanted to do it if they'd kill off Michael, and so it was a nice way of getting around it. Well, you've killed off Michael, but we've got this little reveal, so he is still alive. And then Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously Laurie Strode, gets killed in the first 10 minutes of Halloween Resurrection, which is I really like the opening of that. There's a lot of weight to that opening scene of Halloween Resurrection of Jamie Lee Curtis for Laurie Strode getting killed. And then just the rest of the movie is awful. So Busta Rhymes doing Kung Fu on Michael Myers. It's just that's if there ever was a time to jump the shark. I mean,
why was that even needed?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of bad moments over the years where you just like Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, where he's stalking his niece, Jamie Lloyd, played by Danielle Harris, and that's a continuation from Halloween 4. But in 5, they make this 11-year-old girl, 11-year-old actress, bless her, had to pretend to be a mute. So for the majority of that film, until the final 10 minutes, she's just mumbling and it's awful. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, introduces the cult of Thorn, the Curse of Thorn, which is this a word I can't say. This silly decision where Michael all along has had a curse on him, and this curse of Thorn where he has to kill his bloodline, and then all these druids come into it. Young Paul Rudd is in it, way before his Ant-Man days. Yeah. So there's a history of silly decisions. Resurrection is just an epitome of how not to do a Halloween movie. Oh, saying that, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is also a fine example of how not to do it. See, his first movie, the first
one was really good. Yeah.
I don't know about really. It was all right. It was decent.
I thought it was good for the time. Maybe
it was very much a Rob Zombie film, and if you like Rob Zombie, you'll love it, and if you don't like him, you'll hate it, because he's got to all his movies, from The House of a Thousand Corpses to Devil's Rejects to 31 that came out last year, and the one that I can't remember where Sherry Moon Zombie plays Lords of Salem. For all those films, there's a certain, I guess, texture and feel and tone to the movies. And Rob Zombie's Halloween is very much a Rob Zombie movie. And I do like Rob Zombie movies, so I give that a bit of a pass. But Halloween 2 was just his Halloween was
really bad.
Awful. The stuff with the white horse and the ghost of his mother.
I know, that made no sense. And my brother despised that film. I did as well.
Can't stand it, and it killed the franchise.
It did, and again.
Well, there was supposed to be a third one.
It was meant to be a 3D, wasn't it, or something?
There was, yeah.
But it never happened, and probably for the best. We'll go on to the end now, the review.
Yes.
So, what did you think overall?
I'd go with. There's some people out there, I've seen reviews where it's giving it a 10 out of 10. There's others where it's giving it a 3 or 4.
It has had mixed reviews.
Yeah, I'd go with an 8, a strong 8, I'd say.
An 8,
there was a lot. I really enjoyed it. It maybe at times in the middle felt a little bit drawn out, a little bit overlong. Because it clocks it nearly 2 hours. I thought you could probably lose 10 minutes somewhere here or there, or maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I thought the twist with the doctor killing the policeman and taking the Michael Myers mask for himself, that I didn't agree with that. At times there was I thought maybe a little bit too much humor, but that it worked just about. It worked for me on the right tone. But yeah, I thought it was very well done. The score was stunning. That was John Carpenter and Cody Carpenter, his son, and another chap whose name I forgot. So the score was brilliant. The way they reintroduced Michael felt very well thought out. I like the nods and winks to the rest of the franchise that's been before, and all the performances were great. Jamie Lee Curtis was brilliant. It was
she's always going to be
it was Laurie Strode via Sarah Connor from the Terminator movies. It was just she wasn't a victim, and she was. I thought it was a very good film all around. It works well as a movie on its own. It works well if you take it as part of the whole franchise. And in terms of that franchise, I'd say it's either the second or third best out of the whole lot, because I really like John Carpenter. Well, it wasn't John Carpenter, it was Rick Rosenthal. Halloween 2, I really like the first Halloween 2, not Rob Zombie's.
No, we won't talk about that now.
So obviously the original Halloween's the best. Then it's either Halloween 2 or Halloween H20, but this is thereabouts on that for me. It's definitely worth a watch.
Because we're going to do our own rating, and that is out of 100, what would you give it?
Right, okay.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we'll add your score and my score, and then we'll start our own table of our scary movies of where they're ranked.
Okie dokie. I would go.
Do you want me to start, or since I've just introduced it?
Go wild.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to go with 61, which may not sound a lot.
No.
I overall, as I was saying to you before the recording, I enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
The only problem is that I was not scared at all. I knew when it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's what I expect, but that's what horror film in a cinema to me represents. You know, if I watch on the TV, it's not at you, is it, compared to a cinema screen? And my only problem was that the trailers had a lot of the scenes where I knew what was going to happen. So that's not their fault, I guess. You got to promote the film, but spoilers.
It kind of is you've got to be careful with that.
But I think I enjoyed some of the past that they showed from the very first one. You know, as you mentioned, Laurie Strode being looking like she was dead on the ground, then he looks, and then she's disappeared, doing the opposite effect. The whole toilet scene before she got strangled to death. The little kid who was being babysitted by one of the babysitters who gets killed.
Yes.
I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Even though he only had about a 10-minute clip on the show, but I thought he was fantastic. So he was the comedy of the
most
film.
certainly was. Yeah.
He was brilliant. He was like a mini Gary Coleman, you could say, but
probably taller than Gary Coleman.
Taller, yeah. I keep thinking Gary Coleman was a kid. Well, he was, but he never grew up.
Like Peter Pan.
Like Peter Pan, yeah. Or
just shorter.
Or if sadly he's not with us anymore, Ronnie Barker. You know,
not even Gary Coleman, is he? I don't think.
I don't think. Well, from what I can remember in The Simpsons, I can't remember. Anyway, I won't go into some, and my knowledge is not very good at. But yeah, overall, I'd give it a 56.
56? That's gone down from 61.
Sorry, 61. I'm forgetting. I think 56 was my build-up.
So that's like a 61. That's like essentially a 6 out of 10, a 3 out of 5.
I'd say I'm going to say average.
Right,
so
okay.
I know that's probably a bit lower to what you're going to say.
I'd go with probably an 82 if we're going out of 100.
Ooh, 82.
So, I'm sticking with the 8 out of 10 theme. The 4 out of 5.
So we have got a final score of 143.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's on our
71 and a half. That'd be an average. Yeah, 71 and a half is the average of that.
God, you're good. I wouldn't. My maths is terrible.
I used to be all right in maths. I've not done anything for a while, but yeah.
But obviously we've got our table. It'll keep being added for the end of each show. So Halloween is top of the league
and also
table.
bottom of the league.
Also
at the same
bottom
time.
and middle. But anyway, obviously before we wrap up, to review our next film, we thought we'd come up with our own nominations. I've got mine, Andrew's got his, and I've got a coin right here. So you're going to have to shout for heads or tails, and then if you win the toss, it's your film.
Do we reveal what films we've got in our heads first or after?
After. So we do the toss coin.
Okay.
Do you want to go?
I will go with... I'm going to go against the tails never fails. I'm going to go heads.
Heads. So here we go. And it is tails.
Okay.
Did you say heads?
I said heads. Yeah.
So I'm tails. Okay, so here is my... So it's going to be my film.
It is.
For next week. And we are going to review the very first Scream film. You
I
knew
know.
this.
I guessed that when we discussed this concept. I said, I've got mine, but you probably will know it. It's like, I'm going to guess this is Scream.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we'd leave it to surprise you if it did,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
knew it wouldn't. So yes, that will be our film for next week.
Right.
If you're happy with
Do
that.
I need? Yeah, I'm good with that. I love me some Scream. I love me some Wes Craven. Do I need to reveal what my thought was for what
If
my
you-
movie would be, or
unless
do
you want
I?
to save it for the next
Yeah,
week.
that's what I mean. Yeah,
Save it.
I'll save it. I'll save
yeah.
it. So
If
is
you-
this? This is us having open chats on the
Yeah.
air right now. So
This is our meeting.
Yeah. So as in our premise going forward is we're gonna review a film each week.
Yeah.
Some old, some maybe new, depending what's
Yeah.
in the cinema, and then we
Whatever
just-
film you like.
Yeah, I'm good with this.
Yeah.
I'm very good with this.
And then we rank it on the league table.
Yeah, I'm going to purposely give Scream a low score next week.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
No, I like
oh.
that film. Fun story with Scream is kind of spoilers, but it's a film that's 22 years old. Is that I watched it not long after it first came out, but it was on a friend of mine at the time, had it on video, where odds are his, and just ended up watching it. And I had to go back home, and I'd be probably 16 at the time, 17, yeah. And so I left, but I left before the big reveal that there's two killers.
Oh.
And so I
Oh.
yeah, I didn't know any of that until then. The next time I watched it, maybe about a week later, all the way through, and it's like, oh my god, there's the big twist at the end. But
Yeah.
we'll discuss that.
We'll discuss
another
it
week,
next
which will be next
yeah.
week.
Yeah, so next week. So my thanks to Andrew Pollard.
No problem.
My fellow horror geek, and of course myself. You don't mind being called geek now?
No,
do you?
no,
I
I'm
called you a
good with
nerd.
whatever.
I called you a
It's-
geek. I'm calling you everything here on what's your favourite scary movie. So thank you very much.
You can call me Al.
I could call you Al.
Mm.
So anyway, my thanks to Andrew. My thanks to you at home for listening to our very first edition of What's Your Favourite Scary Movie. Come on, let me play it one more time, shall I?
What's your favorite scary movie?
God, that's even scarier, isn't it, with
like
that
it, I
voice?
like it.
It's great. But anyway, thank you very much for listening on Callum 105 FM, and we'll be on next time.